Hello and welcome to your weekly podcast from Freestyle Media in partnership with the Magic 5. So we know that lots of records were broken at the recent British Masters Championships at Ponds Forge in Sheffield. And one lady who claimed many of those is Alyson Fordham, who joins me today. So welcome to the podcast, Alyson.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me on.
No, not at all. Listen, I just kept seeing your name crop up on the Swimming news articles when it was like more records broken today, and it seemed like every day you were breaking records. It was quite a good weekend for you, wasn't it?
It was a good weekend, yeah, of course. I was very pleased with the swims. And just being there is the main thing, isn't it? Being amongst all those people who share your passion for swimming, and all anyone really wants to do, I think, is swim their best. But getting records is the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you said that actually about just being there and being amongst it all is actually what it's all about. I wasn't able to compete on this occasion. There was a big birthday in the family, and so we had lots of plans that weekend. So I knew, all year round I wasn't going to be doing that, which was, obviously a shame on one hand, but I had a fantastic weekend anyway, so it was fine. I really did feel like I missed out on the whole getting together thing and seeing all the people that you tend to only see at competitions because you don't swim at the same club as them. So are there lots of people in the sort of general community that you always look forward to seeing at these competitions?
Of course, there's lots of old friends there. I've been around swimming for quite a long time. And lots of people pop up from my dim and distant past. It's lovely to see them again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sticking to the theme of that weekend, I believe you broke four British records. And we were just discussing this before we hit record. And I've got written down that you had one European record, but actually I think we just established you had a couple, didn't you?
It was two European records.
Yeah. So 6 records on one weekend. You just said there it was the kind of the cherry on the cake. How did every time you hit the wall and you heard the klaxon go, like how does that feel?
It's lovely, isn't it, when they do that for you and make a nice fuss of you? It's a lovely thing to happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to read through some of your records and your times, just to really showcase how seriously impressive they are. So your 50 freestyle, which I believe is also a European record, 53 was 30.56.
Yeah.
Which just to establish, you're in the 65 to 69 age category. 30.56. That is incredibly fast. Have you always been this quick?
I've always been a sprinter. The further I go, the less good my times become, let's say. And the sprinting's going quite well. So I would have been very happy just to go under 31. So 30.56 was a real treat to see. Yeah. Sheffield's a nice pool. If you're going to do it anyway, you'll do it there.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing then, because again, this is something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast is, people's theories on why they think Sheffield is a fast pool. I'm very much of the opinion that it's a fast pool because I've had a lot of my kind of PBs there before. What's your reason for thinking it's a fast pool?
Honestly, I can't tell you. And I've swum badly there too. I've had bad weekends at Sheffield. But by and large, if you're going to swim, you swim well there. It's the nationals, so that there's the atmosphere, there's the motivation. Usually you're only doing one event in the session, so you're quite fresh for it. But it's, and I can't tell you why. It just has that magic about it.
Well, it's interesting that you say the word magic because, as I say, a few people have come on and given their theories, such as it's just such a cold pool. The moment you dive in, you just want to get out as fast as possible, which makes you swim quickly. But you're not the first person to say there's something magic about the water, which is nice to hear. So then your 100 time, which again I think was a European record as well as a British record.
Yeah,
109.16. And I know you said you wanted to go under 109, which I think you have done short course, and you hold the British record short course. It's 108.96.
I just wanted to go under 110 this recently. So that was nice to go a 69 low rather than high.
Yeah, that's impressive then, because you said that your target was to go below 31 on the 50 and below 70 on the 100, and you've not just done that marginally. You've actually really hit that hard, and that's So when you hit the wall and you saw your time, were you almost a bit surprised at how fast you'd gone, or were you feeling really good going into the weekend?
Oh no, I was surprised. Yeah, you feel you can do it, but when you do the swim, you get a time like that, then yeah, you never know where it's come from, do you? It's just
Yeah, well,
it's
like we
just
just said, it must be the magic of the Sheffield water. Just to round up on your other swims and your times. So in your 200 freestyle, you got a 2:38.23, which is also a
mhm,
British record, and then on
mhm.
the backstroke, you got a 38.53, which is again, it's phenomenal. What I'm establishing here is that freestyle is your main stroke, but certainly
Yeah.
sprinting. And I know that you hold. Um, Obviously records on other strokes as well, such as IM. But
Mhm.
would you say freestyle is your main one?
Oh, freestyle is me. Yeah.
Yeah.
50 and 100 freestyle, but I'll also do the 200. And since I've been older, I've been able to do the 400. I wouldn't have dreamed of doing a 400 when I was younger. It was definitely a distance swim. Um, but I'm having a break from 400s at the moment and just doing a bit more of the other strokes because I can now, because my shoulder's been troubling me for years and I wasn't able to do the other strokes, but now I can. I'm doing a bit more sprinting rather than taking a break from the 400.
Yeah, that's interesting, and let's get onto that later in terms of possibly injuries and stuff that you've had to overcome over the
Mm-hmm.
years. But the next question I want to ask actually is that you're 67, so you've been in this age group for a couple of years now, and you've just gone and set all these records over the weekends, a couple of weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've also set some records back in October at the short course meet. So normally I would imagine that people enter a new age group. And that's when they get their records. But you've done it kind of a few years into that. I mean, why do you think that is? Do you think you're faster now than you've been over the last few years?
Now, I did look back through my records and I realised that I think my body breaks down when I age up. It doesn't like it for some reason. So when the year I entered the 60 to 64 age group was the year the shoulder problems started.
Right.
And then apart from, I did swim the Europeans in London badly, and they recurred after that. And so I was out for 2016, 2017. Back in 18 and 19 improving. 2020 we had COVID. 2021, which was the first nationals back after COVID. And that's my first year in the 65 to 69 age group. I was diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes. So I was too unwell to swim that year.
Ah, okay, okay.
And it
Interesting.
was
So,
only, last year I felt better. I've established taking insulin injections and monitoring my blood glucose levels.
so have you really found that now that you've got that under control, then you've been able to really aid your performance?
I've just been able to train more consistently. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
brilliant.
retired from work, so that helps enormously as well.
That was going to be one of my questions later. Actually, is are you retired yet,
Mm.
or are you still working? I know you're kind of at that age where you could still be working, but no, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned COVID, and obviously we all went through the fact that we couldn't swim, we couldn't train.
Mhm.
How did you find getting back into swimming once the kind of the doors reopened again? Was it something that came naturally to you, or have you had to sort of build up quite slowly?
I was worried about the shoulder injuries recurring because, of course, one of my tenets is do not stop swimming. Whatever range of movement you have, especially at my age, if you stop using it, you lose it. And I made the mistake when I first got the shoulder injuries. I said, okay, I'll take 2 months out to rest them and get them better. I was worse when I got back in the pool. I could
Really?
hardly get my arms over at all. So from that time on, it's been never stop swimming. Whatever's going on, get in there and do what you can, any way you can do it. And some swimming is always better than no swimming. But COVID, we had to stay out, didn't we? So I was as careful as I could be to maintain my shoulder strength and mobility Even got back in the open water when that opened first in March, 10.5 degrees, which is way out of my comfort zone. 3 hats, gloves, wetsuit, boots, the lot.
Wow, that's
But,
amazing.
any swimming, just, yeah. And then I think it was April, we could get back in our local pools, couldn't we? They wouldn't let us join the swimming club, but we could go swimming in the public sessions for some reason. But yeah, straight back in the local pool and ease back into it, of course. Everything I think about now is about not getting injured again. But yeah.
Yeah, I love your mentality though about never stop swimming. I think that's fantastic, and that's a mantra that I personally have tried to take on this year. Really, is that I've got goals in terms of how many sessions a week that I want to do, and my only goal this year is just go and swim, just go and train. So if there's a day where I've been working and I feel tired, or sometimes you can't quite eat your dinner early enough, so you end up eating. You either eat a meal quite close to your session, or you think I'll have to wait till after the session, which is going to be really late. It's not very convenient. In the past, that may have been where I said, "Well, I'll just miss training then." But this year, my mantra is just go and swim. Any swim, like you said, any swimming is better than no swimming.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you kind of have a similar mentality, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I've listened to a few people on your podcast say about doing a swim at the end of a long, hard day, and you leave all your frustrations in the pool. You can just get lost in a hard set of swimming and everything else goes out of your head. All you can think about is, how am I going to get through the next swim? How am I going to do this? How am I going to keep going at this pace? And
life can be life can be a funny thing, can't it? Because during the day you might have something going on at home or in your job, and you think, oh, this is completely consuming my mind, and then just a number of hours later, the thing that can completely consume your mind is, how am I possibly going to do this next 100 meters?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a strange old thing, but that's what I love about swimming. Like you say, it takes you away from anything else, and whilst you might feel tired whilst you're swimming, and the thought of that next set might kind of stress you out, at the same time, it's a completely de-stressor, isn't it? Swimming, it's a lovely feeling, and when you finish your session, it's a great sense of achievement. So looking through the records, you've got lots of short course and you've got lots of long course as well. Would you say you were a better long course swimmer or a better short course swimmer? Where would you put yourself?
I would say, arguably, I've always swum better short course than long course. Though, of course, we just swim more short course in this country, don't we? There are far fewer long course meets. I've always, if there's been a long course meet, I've always just rocked up there, dived in the water and expected it to feel the same as it does, and it takes maybe 2 days to get used to it. You're just swimming up the pool thinking, where on earth is the end? When is it coming? And speed perception is altered in a 50-metre pool because everything just seems further away. The sides, the bottom, the ends, everything seems further away, and your perception of speed is different. So I am learning now that I do need to go and practice before a long course meet and just get a bit of long course training in. And I did that before Sheffield, and I think it was helpful. Yeah,
well, it sounds like it was helpful. That's a really interesting point that you said. Everything feels bigger, even the bottom feels maybe deeper. Because I remember I've had that sense once before. The first time I did a long course meet as master swimmer, when I dove in for the warm up, and it was sort of taking ages to get to the other end. I'd never trained in a long course pool either, so this was like my first experience. And I likened it to sort of swimming in the sea, where everything just feels so vast, and just think that there is no end and there is no bottom. And it sort of played with my mind for a bit. And I remember not swimming very well at all that particular weekend. But yeah, it's interesting that you sort of said the same thing there, because maybe we all feel a bit like that.
It makes you feel like you're swimming a lot slower, and therefore you probably try too hard. It's different. It's different. So of course.
Yeah. Let's go all the way back to to the very start, really, with swimming. So how old were you when you swam? And then, of course, we will get onto the big one when you were 17. But how old were you when you started swimming?
Well, I had my first race at 12. So didn't learn to swim till I was 9 or 10. Bit of a late starter. And then, but I loved it and progressed quickly. And my parents were very encouraging. I was doing national age groups by 14. And yeah, 17, I was in the English team at the Commonwealth Games in New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean that is fantastic. So was it sort of sprint freestyle when you're on the team?
Yeah, under three. I got there just in the relay. But in those days, they'd let you swim the individuals as well. They weren't quite as strict as they are now. So I think I did get to swim the individual, the 100 free as well. They weren't doing 50s then. 100 was the shortest you could go.
And how did you get on at the Commonwealth Games?
We got a bronze medal in the relay, so that's my one claim to fame. And it was at the time it was a lifetime PB, but I mean it was still 61 seconds, something like that, it's just pedestrian pace compared to what the international swimmers are doing now.
I mean, that's everything's relative and relevant to the time to the time that you're in. So, I mean, that is fantastic, and it's a wonderful story to hear. But I'd be interested to know then. You're still swimming now. It sounds like you've had a few breaks over the years. Again, we'll get to that shortly. But how have you seen swimming change, and why do you think it is that people are so much faster now? I'm talking about on the elite stage than perhaps they were all those years ago.
It's phenomenal. The women now are doing the times that the men were doing then.
Yeah.
53, 54 for 100 metres. It's just incredible. So I think they must be an awful lot stronger. I mean, there was no such thing then as professional swimming. You couldn't earn a living doing it. So I think most elite swimmers these days don't have outside jobs. That's what they do. That's their life. Whereas then most did. They were trying to work and have a life around it. And it made it harder. But it always advances, doesn't it? All sports advance and get faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So you raced at the Commonwealth Games at 17.
Mm-hmm.
You then decided not to continue pursuing swimming at the top of the game because you wanted to focus on your A levels.
Yeah, so I got my A levels, went to university, and once you get there, no one makes you do anything, do they? At school, they make you do a bit of PE and a bit of activity. University, no one makes you do a thing. So, I started to gain weight, feel unfit. It felt very unnatural. People played a lot of squash then, tried squash, didn't like it, tried a few things, and realised that actually what we enjoy doing most is things that we're good at. So I went and joined the local swimming club, which was Nova Centurion then, with great coach Neville Cross, who's unfortunately no longer with us. I became a great friend and mentor, and I just got back into swimming again. Before I knew it, I was swimming faster than ever before. I did actually go sub 60 this time around.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a quick point. You said that at university nobody ever makes you do anything. I mean, that wasn't my experience. When I was at university, I was made to drink pints, whether I liked it or not.
Well, there's the eating and the drinking, which doesn't help, does it?
But no, that's beside the by. But so you joined Nova Centurion. So was that whilst you were still at university, or had you left by now when you were sort of full time working?
No, that's while I was still at university. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Swam with them. It was great actually because Neville used to take me away on trips with him as his chaperone because I was an adult. He got the club to pay for me as chaperone, so I got a free trip and he got his nights off to go out with his swimming coach friends.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's a good way to get free holidays.
Absolutely. So did you? Was it always in the UK where you were racing, or did you ever go abroad?
Oh, we went abroad to other meets. I recall going to meets in Prague and a few places where we could arrange them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So as we go through the years, then Have you ever had any breaks from swimming, or have you managed to always kind of carry on?
Well, I came down to London. Neville moved down to London to Swiss Cottage. So when I um, had to start work, then I came down to London and trained with him at Swiss Cottage. Stayed there for quite a long time, actually. Um, but yes, there were. Oh, and I got back in the British team at the age of 28, which was considered
Wow.
ancient then. But yeah, life gets in the way, doesn't it? Work, families, other commitments. So, like everybody else, life has got in the way at times, and there've been periods where I just could not find the time to get to the pool. Um,
But you got back into the British team in your late 20s. So tell us all about that experience.
well, it wasn't any major meets. Just the European Cup meet and some smaller um, internationals. But it was nice, yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. It really is. It's that whole scene just is something obviously I've never experienced myself, and I can imagine it's a great place to be amongst brilliant swimmers, and like-minded people as well. What I want to come to now is you're 67 and you are still absolutely rapid. What do you put that down to? Do you just are you a natural, or do you really work on your speed?
Um, I No, I love swimming, um, and I am a sprinter predominantly. But when it comes to training, I will just do whatever the coach sets.
Yeah.
I'm not precious or fussy about it. And in fact, my favourite sets are the ones you can get lost in. It's hundreds on a tight turnaround where you just have to go at a speed that will get you 5 or 10 seconds rest, and you can set off again. Um, So I think
So tell,
the key at the moment is just that I'm retired and I can be more consistent about it. Um, and that with my shoulders, I do regular strength work now. And I think that's helped an awful lot as well.
so that's interesting because I was going to say, tell us a bit more about your training. So obviously, when you swim with a club and your coach is kind of determines what the set is,
Mhm.
you perhaps don't have a say in that, but what you do have a say in is what you do outside of the pool in terms of strength training and just general recovery and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you mentioned that you've got into strength work. Has that been a recent thing, or have you been doing that for quite a while now?
Um, since my shoulders went for the second time in 2016, so I had them injected, got better, jumped back in the water, carried on doing things just the way I always had. Surprise, surprise, they broke down again. You think you'd learn, wouldn't you? If they broke down when you're doing that before, you need to do something different. Um, so I paid attention to the bits of the stroke and the turns actually that were troubling my arms. Tried to modify them. Backed off, sprinting completely. Just did lots and lots of distance, and started going to the gym to strengthen up my shoulders, that whole upper body, the core, principally, and have done that ever since. And some physio, obviously, but I think the strength work has been the key.
Okay. And have you suffered any more with your shoulder since, or have you been able to keep away from any sort of pain that would keep you out of the water?
They play up from time to time, and when they do, then I just go back to doing the bits of the stroke that I know that I can do without hurting them. So I will, for a long while I couldn't put any pressure on the catch, for example. So I
Okay.
just said, okay, I'll just swim and not do the catch. I will only put
Yeah.
pressure on the back end of the stroke.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
butterfly is dreadful if your shoulders are bad,
Yeah.
because you can't rotate in butterfly to take the pressure off your shoulders at all. So I couldn't do butterfly at all. But for a long while, backstroke and breaststroke hurt. Okay, I thought I'll only do front crawl, but
Mm.
it's keep going. Careful stretching, very careful warm up. So generally, I don't put any pressure on the pool for the first 400, and then build it up after that. And usually try and do at least 800 before I'll do any really fast work.
Yeah, that's really good to know actually, and I think lots of people would be interested to hear what your sort of routine is in the gym with your shoulder work specifically to try and strengthen them up and to avoid injury again, because that unfortunately is a problem that a lot of us face. So sort of talk us through briefly kind of what sort of stuff you do in the gym in terms of exercises.
Well, I do every exercise for the upper body that I can do in the gym. I learned some exercises for my rotator cuff from my physio. Um, Went on a seminar about swimmer's shoulder that Basildon Phoenix organised a couple of years ago. Picked up some tips there. A couple of people I know are osteopaths. So you take in little bits from just
Mm.
wherever and incorporate it into your routine. But really just moving my shoulder in every direction I can possibly think of, doing a weight which is as much as I can do without straining. Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds great.
yeah, and just going consistently. Paying attention to biceps, triceps,
Mm.
as well as all the overhead and front of the shoulder exercises.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear that you're so tuned in with all of that stuff, and it is really hard, isn't it? Because often when you have a pain, it's coming from the source of that pain is actually coming from somewhere else. And I'm not just talking about shoulders now. I'm talking often about any part of your
Mm,
body.
yeah.
You know, quite often you can have tight hamstrings or something like that, and actually the problem is coming from your lower back
Hmm.
or inactive glutes or something like that, and so you don't necessarily feel the pain there. So it can be a minefield, can't it, to know how to alleviate that pain. But actually, if you're working all of your body and, like you say, all different angles and rotations, then actually you're giving yourself the best opportunity to avoid any kind of further injury.
Yeah. And as you say, you do all of you if you can as well. So I always stretch my back out.
Mm.
We've all got arthritis in our necks and backs at this age. So I always do spinal rotations, spinal strengthening exercises. Core exercises are incredibly useful, I think. They help you maintain your body position in the water really well. And then some legs as well. But
Yeah,
most of
I think
it aimed at the upper body.
I think what's great about swimming is that whilst there are certain muscles and parts of the body that are more prevalent when you're swimming, like our lats and our shoulders and our core, I like the fact that it's still a very functional sport, really, because your whole body is moving. So
Hmm.
actually having general functional strength is actually probably more important than anything. If you went to the gym and just did loads of pull-ups, you'd end up with misalignment all over your body.
Mm.
And actually that is the key, isn't it? It's just being generally healthy and strong throughout your whole body, and the chances are you'll be in great shape to race.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as you get older, inevitably you lose some flexibility. Your joints start working differently, and it happens gradually and without you realizing it. You're doing movements differently, and then you start to put strain on other bits of you because you're doing movements differently, and then it's that strain that can turn into an injury. So doing as much strengthening as you can. It doesn't have to be heavy weights. You're not looking to be muscle bound. You're just looking to keep everything toned up and fit for purpose, if you like,
Yeah,
supportive to all your
absolutely.
other bits and pieces.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great mentality, and it's fantastic to see that you take all that sort of stuff seriously. In terms of other parts of recovery, then, or not just recovery, but in terms of general well-being and performance enhancing, are you always careful about what you eat? Do you have a good diet? And then is there anything else that you're doing? Any other sort of secrets that you can share?
I don't have dietary secrets now. I know what healthy diet is. I try to follow it.
Yeah.
Um, I was vegetarian for 34 years, so my diet was predominantly plant-based.
Yeah.
I also decided that I was intolerant to wheat, so I've been following a wheat avoiding diet for the last 15 to 20 years. So I really did think of myself as a bit of a dietary weirdo and someone that no one really wanted to invite to a dinner party because I was hard to feed. But I did always say, well, hey, I can eat crisps and chips and chocolate. And I did.
They're the main things.
You know, one of the great things about doing a lot of exercise is you can eat what you want when you want, by and large, and there's nothing wrong with having treats.
Yeah,
Sadly, I can't do that quite so much with type 1 diabetes.
sure, sure.
The carb-rich foods don't fit well into a diabetic diet, and I couldn't fill up so much on carbs like I had done. So I have actually now started to, I had to eat more protein to get energy and get full. So I started eating meat and fish again. But after
Okay.
so many years off it, I really am not interested in processed meats anymore. So I eat mostly chicken and fish, which I think is quite healthy.
Yeah. Well, what's really coming across here that I think is so fascinating is that you're somebody who it sounds like in all forms of your life. I mean, we're talking about swimming really, but it sounds like you're very on top of what you know is good for you. So, a in the water, you know what's good for you. I mean, you even talked earlier about you'll do 800 meters before you break into any kind of speed, and just having that, just having been able to tune in to your own body like that
Mm-hmm.
and know that you need to kind of get that done first is brilliant. You're doing all the strength work that you need to do. It sounds like you're very patient when you're in the gym because you're kind of working through your whole body, not just with strength, but with flexibility and stability as well, which is, a lot of people, go in and just think, right, I'm going to lift some weights and then go home and not really think about anything else. And then, taking on a vegetarian diet all those years ago and deciding for yourself that you were gluten intolerant, again, it sounds like you're somebody who cares a lot about how you feel in order to not just perform well in the pool, but actually live a good life.
I think as someone who exercises a lot, I think you're more in tune with your body and how it feels. You notice things when they're going wrong sooner that perhaps other people wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, I'm just me, and everyone's an individual, and I think everyone should find what works for them. So yeah, listen to lots of other people, but pick and choose from it. Try things out. If they're not going to work for you, leave them, and treat yourself as an individual and do what's right for you.
Yeah. Do you have any other sports or hobbies that you enjoy doing other than swimming? So, I'm just thinking like, do you like hiking or cycling, or is there anything arty that you quite like doing?
I actually do a dance class once a week.
Brilliant.
I was one of those annoying parents who would take their kids to activities and sit watching and think, oh, I want to have a go at this. And if I could, I generally did. So, yeah, I took up dancing many years ago and I've kept it up since, largely because there's such a nice bunch of people and it's only once a week and it's just so completely different. I think I'm someone who lives in jeans and fleeces and t-shirts, and I'm not known to be graceful. And to go along to one of these classes and try and achieve it, I
So
have a
what
good
type of
memory. I
dancing
can
is it?
remember the dance steps at least.
Yeah. Is it ballet, tap, modern? What's the dancing?
We do ballroom, Latin American, old time, and line dancing. It's called
Fantastic.
sequence dancing. So you learn a sequence of maybe 16 bars of steps and then you repeat it throughout the piece of music.
That's brilliant. And do you ever put any sort of shows on for people to come and watch?
No, but we do the qualifications with medals in it.
Cool.
So we do build up to, exams, if you like, and you have to go in
Yeah.
a big hall all by yourself. So there's just you, the person you're dancing with, and someone operating the music, and the examiner in the corner of the hall. So
Yeah. Wow.
you really feel like you're in a goldfish bowl under the spotlight. It's quite nerve-wracking, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
I can imagine it's like being on the blocks, isn't it? When everything drops silent
Yeah.
and you feel like everybody, this isn't the reality, but you feel like suddenly everybody's watching you, and it's a very strange feeling. You said that there's the opportunity at medals and things like that. This is where you're going to tell us that you're actually a British record holder in dancing as well.
No, no, no. That's wrong. Yeah, I've got
Sorry.
up to gold as dancing as a lady. I've gone up to gold medal standards, and now
Fantastic.
actually I'm going back through them again, dancing as a man. You don't get many men turning up to dance classes, so you dance by yourself, or I will, dance with other people as a man if I know the dance. or the vice versa. But as a man, it's supposed to make you a stronger dancer. The man has to lead
Oh,
the lady. The man's in
yeah.
charge of putting the lady in the right place.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So just to round up, then bringing it back to the swimming. Um, Again, you talked earlier about the sort of times that you were hoping to achieve in the competition just gone recently, and it sounds like you've kind of always got some goals in mind. Do you have any more hopes for other British records or European records that you'd quite like to get?
No, I'm just gonna keep training and keep going. It does get harder to get the records as you get through the age group, and there are some very fast ladies coming up behind me that have gone
Yes.
faster in the younger age groups than I ever did. So my records tend to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it makes getting older fun, doesn't it? When you can age up and start breaking records.
Absolutely, and just having records is fantastic. And I'll tell you something else as well, that the more records that you set as you kind of go through the ages, probably the less likelihood of them getting broken, because I suspect that more people do maybe stop swimming for one reason or another, whether it's their body just can't cope anymore or whatever. So actually, the more records you have as you go on, probably is a greater chance of them standing. So we shall see kind of how you get on there. And then in terms of other competitions this year, I presume you'll be at the short course nationals in October. Have you got anything else lined up?
Yeah, no, it's Sheffield. So a few practice meets and then Sheffield. I'm not going to go to Japan to the Worlds. It seemed like a little bit too much for me. The big time difference. So you can't just go for the 3 days of the swim. You really need a week to get over the jet lag. And I don't think I'm brave enough to do that yet. But we'll look. I
Mm.
do want to do some international meets, so we'll look at some closer to home when they come round.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Final question that I want to put to you, and it's a question I've never thought to ask my other guests before, especially guests that I've had on that are record holders, and of course we're talking to a former Commonwealth swimmer here as well. You can always improve. Do you feel like there are parts of your swimming that even at 67 you feel like you're working on and you want to get better?
Yeah. I mean, you get slower as you get older. I'm afraid it is inevitable. Um, so that's going to happen. But yeah, you can always improve, and sometimes it happens by accident. You've just got to keep an open mind and listen and look. So one example, I suddenly started to get spasms in the front of my neck. Couldn't think why. Went to the physio. Physio suggested that I should swim with my chin tucked in, like this. Well, I've been brought up in the school of swimming where the waterline came along the middle of the forehead here. So I can't do that, but it hurt. And I was paying free if I swam with my chin tucked in. So I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I swam better and I swam faster and it felt easier.
Wow.
Hang on a minute. And I went and looked at some YouTube videos. And now, of course, you swim with your head down, looking straight at the water, and the water line is across the middle of your head. So, you make improvements sometimes by accident.
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating actually. And my coach, he recently turned 60 and still competes now. And he was actually saying to me the other day about he was actually picking something up on my stroke that I needed to improve on, and he said that he used to make the same mistake as well, and he's only just recently corrected it for himself. And he said, years and years of swimming, no coach has ever told him you're doing it wrong or you need to do this instead. It's something that he actually just established by accident, as you say. And then the more he's kind of then looked into it, he thought, actually, yeah, that is how you're supposed to swim. But nobody's ever really told me that. So it's quite fascinating. We are always developing, aren't we?
And technique is hugely important. And, when I'm training, my focus is always on technique. I'm always thinking about something, or usually trying to think about one thing every length and something different every length. And if nothing else, that keeps my brain occupied and keeps me focused on the session. I also count lengths by doing that. So if I have a series of 8 things to think about, by the time I've finished thinking about 1 every 50, then I'll have finished my 400 without having to count the lengths. So keeping your brain occupied is but that's an aside. Just technique is hugely important, and it changes over time. So, front crawl used to be an S-shaped pull. You look at the elite swimmers now, they are not doing any S-shape. They're pulling shoulder width straight down the body to the hips.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like what you said about thinking about one thing per length. That's something I've never thought to do before. So I often swim and think, right, try and keep your hips high, keep a bend in your arm. And I'm trying to think about all these things at the same time. But actually, if I break it down, that's it. Or even if if you're only swimming, say 50s, think about something different per 50. Yeah. And then I guess it's just that constant rotation of thinking about it. And hopefully, eventually, it all kind of pieces together. It's a brilliant way of looking at it.
Takes your mind off. If you're feeling really tired and rough, it takes your mind off that as well.
No, absolutely. No, that's a great tactic indeed. Alyson, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a really, really fantastic conversation. I learned a lot about you that I didn't expect to learn, such as the Commonwealth and the British team, which is absolutely fantastic. And I just want to finish by saying as well, and I've said this already on the podcast, but 67 years of age, 30.56 on a British long course, a British record, long course 50 freestyle. That is phenomenal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you again for joining us. It was a brilliant chat.
Thank you for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.